I'm going to start constructing my quilt by attaching my small sashing pieces to the side of my blocks. So to do that, I'm going to pin at the beginning. I'm going to pin at the end. I'm going to put a pin in the middle. Probably not necessary, but I'm going to pin here and here as well. And right here is the seam on the other side. I'm going to pin that open. I'm going to get all the sashing pieces ready to sew on, and then I'm going to sew them all at once. All right, I've sewn the small sashing onto all of the pieces except the last piece on each row, since that will have, it doesn't need a sashing on the side since it will have border. So now I'm going to start attaching the rows, and then once I have all the rows sewn together, I'll attach the long sashing pieces, and then we'll add the borders, and then we'll have a quilt top. I have both of my quilts up on the wall, and I have attached all the small sashing pieces, so they are now in rows, and now I need to attach the long sashing pieces and the borders. So what I have done is I've taken all of I have 2 quilts worth here, all of my sashing pieces and all of my border pieces, and I've sewn all the border pieces together into one giant strip, and I've sewn all these sashing pieces together into one giant strip. And now I'm going to cut them down to the correct size. This is a lot easier to me than just making a specific size. Just making a long strip and then cutting it down to size. So let me show you how I will cut those. All right, here I have my end of my giant sashing piece. I didn't cut off this selvage at the very end. I cut them off for the pieces that I sewed together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually fold it in half. So these have to be 55.5 inches long for the lap size. So half of that is 27.75 inches. So what I'm going to do is fold it in half, and then I'm going to get a long ruler. I'm going to need more than one long ruler to cut these. So my long ruler is 24.5 inches, which isn't quite enough, but you can stack rulers next to each other to cut longer lengths. So I have here a 4-inch ruler and a 24.5-inch ruler, so that's more than enough. Okay, now I'm going to line my strips up. I'm going to move this over here so I can see better. I need a little bit extra since I have some selvage I need to trim off. So I'm going to line everything up. So 24.5, I need 3.25 inches to get it to the right size, and I am lining up over here with 3.25 inches on this ruler right here, and then I will push this ruler over. I'm going to line up these hash marks with my piece so that I make sure my edge is square, and then I'm going to trim over here. So that gives me my first sashing piece. And I'm going to keep cutting those until I have all of my pieces. And my first two border pieces, the ones that go on the top and the bottom, need to be that same size also. So I'm going to kind of treat those like a sashing piece at first and attach those. And then I'll add the side border pieces very last. So I'm going to get all these cut. I have all of my pieces cut now for my rifle paper quilt. So what I'm going to do is attach the border piece to the top, and then start adding the sashing pieces in between the rows. And I think it may seem like a place that you can skip pinning, but I highly recommend pinning because it will really help your fabric feed through your machine evenly. So I'm going to pin all these on, and then I'm going to sew them and start putting my quilt top together. I have the sashing pieces sewn onto my rows now. So I'm going to attach the rows together with this long sashing piece between them. But here is an important step in helping make sure everything gets lined up, because if you don't do this, and you sew things together, no matter how amazing of a sewist quilter person you are, it's going to shift. So I am going to take a ruler and a Hera marker, and I'm going to be sewing these two pieces together. So I need to mark some lines on this one so that they can line up. And I'm going to line up the ruler with the edge of this block here. See the edge of the block. And then I'm just going to mark right here. And then I'll know that this line needs to line up with this part of the block. So I'm going to line up all the way down. Okay, and if your sashing piece didn't end up perfectly at the end of your row, this is a good time to just trim that off so it's straight. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some pins. Okay, I have my pins here, and I'm going to fold this down onto here, and then I'm going to pin at the beginning. I'm going to pin where that seam meets that line I just marked right here. And then I'm going to pin in between those. This will just help keep everything from shifting and keep everything lined up. And I will do this on every sashing piece before I sew it to the one above it. It makes a big difference, and it's a minimally annoying thing to do. So here I've got this seam, and I'm going to line it up with this marked line right there.